Hi, this is Jurgen Rasmussen speaking. Welcome to the Provocative Hypnosis blog. This one is a very practical, to the point episode about why we suffer. Really, what are the roots of psychological suffering? If you look around, you will notice that even in very similar life circumstances, you will have people who suffer a lot. They might be severely depressed. They might be very anxious, struggle with panic attacks, addictions, constant anger outbursts. And then in the same challenging set of circumstances, you have other people who are able to remain at peace internally, fundamentally, who are able to find a sense of happiness and fulfillment despite of life's challenges. There's a very simple distinction that if you get it, you can dramatically reduce your own psychological suffering, and as a result, spend way more time in the peace and happiness that really is the natural state of a mind that is undisturbed. So there are really three basic bad ideas or bad beliefs that have a tendency to lie behind most psychological suffering. The first belief is the belief that I must succeed. Now, under the banner of succeed, you could put any goal, wish, or want. It might be reaching a particular academic standard. It might be performing at work. It might be losing 20 pounds. It might even be being able to uphold a certain ethical standard for your own life. Now, there's one thing to want something, to want to achieve a goal, to want to have some experience. And if you have some sort of goal and you work for it and you don't achieve it, it's natural to feel some frustration or some disappointment. But if you take wanting some goal, wanting some outcome, and you turn it into a must, meaning that you turn it into a demand that you must perform, or that you must have this, or that you really need it, now you will be on the express train to psychological suffering. So the second irrational demand or belief that has to that's usually behind suffering is demanding to be liked, demanding to be respected. So we are social beings, so it's very natural to want other people to respect you. Now, under the banner of respect, we could put liked, appreciated, loved, desired, listened to, seen, understood. You know, it's very natural to want to be seen, for example, to want to be heard, to want to be appreciated. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you take that want of, for example, wanting to be heard, and you turn it into a demand that says that you must listen to me. I need for you to appreciate me. Well, if you do that, again, you will be on the express train to psychological suffering. So imagine this: if you have a spouse or husband, wife, or girlfriend, whatever it might be. If I go home tonight and I want my wife to listen to me, this is it's a reasonable thing, you know. I want my wife to understand me, to listen to me, to hear some complaint or objection or want that I have. Now, let's say that I go home and I initiate that conversation, and she just kind of rolls her eyes and says, "Oh no, not that again," or you know, uh, whatever. If I'm in a good mood, if I'm in a balanced place, it's not going to do too much. If I'm tired or somewhat stressed out, you know, I might I might feel some frustration. I might feel some disappointment, uh, but not that much. But on the other hand, if I take the want that she listen, that she understand me, and I turn it into a demand that says that she must listen to me. I need for her to listen. If I do that in my mind, and she now rolls her eyes and goes, "Oh no, not that," and I keep demanding that she must listen, now I'm likely to boil over. Now I might rage or get really, really angry, especially if my blood sugar is kind of unstable and I'm somewhat sleep deprived or somewhat fatigued. Then that really, really comes into play. Um, getting the third demand. The first demand is, on my own behalf. I must succeed. I must perform. I have to be a particular way. The second demand is about other people, how they treat you, how they see you, how they view you. And the third demand is more about the world. So it's one thing to want for politicians to be honest. Good luck. Or for the media to be more objective. Again, kind of unlikely. Um, or for the sun to shine, or for the trains to arrive on time. You can want all these things. You can do your part in making life better, contributing to a good society around you. But again, if you take the want that politicians be more honest and you turn it into a demand that they therefore must be more honest or that the trains have to come on time, then you're going to feel a lot of unnecessary suffering whenever you catch them in a lie or whenever the trains aren't there when they're supposed to. And since we have a tendency to not be that good at seeing thoughts as thoughts, it will then very easily look as if it's the delay of the trains that directly creates your psychological suffering, giving rise to the illusion that for you to have a different experience internally, the trains must be on time, or your wife has to listen, or you have to reach a particular goal. So this distinction, on the one hand, of wanting something, having a goal, having a wish, and working your ass off to get it, and on the other hand, irrationally demanding that since you wish it to be so, you absolutely need it. It absolutely must be that way. This is, I'm pretty sure, of the main roots to psychological suffering. Now, no answer is a complete answer, meaning that, you might have a person who has a brain tumor that's really destroying areas of the brain conducive to emotional regulation, for example. You might have someone who's experiencing brain damage after electroconvulsive therapy, which is quite a scam. I'll talk about that in some other podcast. Uh, or you might have someone who's suffering from the effect of too many concussions, or whose suffering might be related to adverse effect of certain medications. For example, Uh, People who have used SSRI medications, antidepressives, for more than 5 years, approximately 20% develop something called tardive dyskinesia, which is a horrible neurological disease. Um, so there may be other factors at play, but based upon both reading up on science and 20 years of clinical experience at this point, I will say that in the vast majority of cases, the vast majority of cases, when people are experiencing psychological suffering, when people are depressing, doing anxiety, having a lot of anger outbursts, it's bad philosophy that really is the main source of the suffering. It's this tendency of not seeing thoughts as thoughts, but it's also this tendency of taking wants, wishes, and goals, which is fine, and then irrationally turning them into these absolutistic demands. Because here's the perverse aspect of this. It doesn't, the people who come in who might be anxious and depressed and who are convinced that their experience is a direct consequence of certain living conditions, or not having certain things, or not having achieved certain things. They very often have the illusion that if only I could get this sorted, if only this would be different, then I would be completely fine on the inside. This is likely not true, because it does never take a long time before I get a new client who has achieved exactly those things and who are experiencing the same psychological issues. So if you demand that you succeed, that you must succeed, um, you will experience a lot of internal turmoil on your road to, call it, success. Now, succeeding won't necessarily help, because it won't take you long to realize that you could lose what you just gained. So if you keep the same philosophy, you're going to demand that you keep succeeding, or demand that you not lose it. And in that sense, you can remain just as miserable, while falling for the illusion that if only you earn more money, or have more sexual conquests, or whatever the topic might be, that will give you the peace of mind that you're looking for. But it really doesn't. It really doesn't. Sometimes people are very concerned with negative events and trauma, and have the have the mindset that if someone's struggling psychologically, it has to be due to some event or some happening in life. This is not really the case either. It looks that way to the extent that you don't really see thoughts as thoughts. But success can also be equally, I'll put dangerous in quotation marks, because it's never really the events in of themselves. It's how we make sense of them. But success in of itself can also be dangerous if you have a bad philosophy. If you're engaging in this practice of turning wants, wishes, and goals into absolutistic demands. I had a client once who won a world title in a sport. Won't mention which sport, but this person had the idea that if only he won that world title, then he would finally be enough. Then he would have a sense of contentment on the inside. And he strived, he trained, he worked his butt off, and he was able to win his world title, or world championship, I should say. Um, and of course, he was ecstatic for a while. But it didn't take long for him to land. It didn't take long for the same anxieties and the same neurotic feelings to appear, because his thinking was the same. And then he fell into a really deep depression based upon the belief that, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be profoundly happy now. And if I can't be happy now, I'll never be happy. It's completely hopeless. And then he went into this profound depression. Of course, it's not the success in of itself. It's the belief. It's the bad, irrational philosophy that really is the issue. I see this too with a lot of anxious and jealous clients, who might be in a with a very loving, devoted partner. They have achieved their goals, so to speak, but they still have the same mindset. So in their mind, they are demanding to know that the relationship will last forever. They're demanding to know that I need to know that she won't find someone else, or that she'll never cheat, or whatever it might be. And of course, internally, you know that you can't actually know those things 100%. So as a result, they live in constant anxiety, and often giving rise to the illusion that if I only can control my partner or limit my partner, or know where my partner is at all times, then I'll be happy, then I'll be calm. But of course, this doesn't work, and it effectively kills the relationship that they're in, very often then leading them to attempt to control even more. So I'll give you one personal story and a couple of client stories to kind of illustrate this whole concept a bit further. After a seminar I did in the UK, this has to be almost 10 years ago, my promoter drove me to the airport, and we really had plenty of time, but we just ended up in this huge traffic jam, which I don't know why, if there was an accident or whatever happened, but we were stuck for a long, long time. And I remember beginning to think, something has to happen. Now something has to happen. The traffic has to start moving because I have to catch my plane. And this thinking went on unchecked, and my irritation and my anger grew. And after a while, I was sitting there in the car, kind of fuming. And at that moment, it completely looked like the traffic jam was directly creating the feelings that I was having. It completely looked that way. But then my training kicked in, since I know this distinction, and I asked myself, well, does the traffic have to start moving? Well, for me to catch my plane, yes, okay, but must I catch my plane? And I realized that the answer was no. Yes, would I like to catch my plane? You bet. Am I willing to do what I can to catch it, which at the present moment is nothing? Yep. Would it likely be better? I can't know, but would it likely be better if I catch my plane? Yeah, I won't have to spend overnight at the hotel and get up early for an early flight and reschedule appointments. Although you never know what might happen. Something fun might happen, you know. But does any of this mean that I have to catch my plane? And I realized that the answer was no. And over the next couple of minutes, all the anger and irritation dissipated. And I found myself sitting there feeling no stress whatsoever. And the traffic jam was still just as stuck. So nothing had happened externally, but my feeling response was completely different. This is really true, irrespective of circumstance. Now, you might ask, well, what about, that's a rather mundane example in life. What about, truly horrible situations where you are being wronged by a legal system, or heavy-handed bureaucracy, or you're being cheated or abused, or something like that. I had a client a couple of years ago who had been severely sexually abused from a different country by her father. Both she and her sister had been consistently raped from the ages of 8 or 9 until she was 15 or 16. And the father was hitting the mother, and it was just horrible, just a house of horrors. She moved here, got a good education, good job, had a family, but was struggling with rage, a lot of rage and a lot of depression. And her father was dead. Her mother was still alive, so she would call her mother in the other country on occasion. But she had a lot of rage directed towards her mother, and she said to me, I need for my mother to be honest about the abuse for me to be at peace. The mother had never quite been willing to acknowledge the severity of the abuse, pretending to kind of laugh it away or push it under the carpet, or attempting to maintain the facade. She had even set out a rumor that said, if anything ever happened, they must have seduced him, meaning the sisters, which was completely wrong. So she told me with a lot of intensity, I need for my mother to acknowledge the abuse for me to be at peace. So I looked at her and I said to her, I'm deeply sorry about what happened to you. What your father did was wrong, psychologically, morally, ethically, legally. It was just wrong in every way. And I truly wish that you never had to go through that. And I completely sympathize that you want your mother to be honest. It would be the ethical thing to do. There's no moral relativism here. I mean that would be the ethical thing to do, to actually own up to the abuse. I completely support that you attempt to persuade her to change her mind about it, by writing her or calling her, it's completely fine. Here's my challenge to you. Is it really true that you need for your mother to be honest, for you to be at peace? Is it really true that you need it? And she got rageful towards me. How can you ask me such a question? Of course, everyone knows, blah, 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 blah. And she stormed out of the office. She was that upset. I did nothing to attempt to calm her down. I just sat in my place. She came back for the next appointment a week later with a profound change in experience. And she said, I was raging for 2 days. I was so angry at you that you could even suggest that you could even ask such a thing. But the question kept haunting me. The question, do I need it? Do I really need it? And I think it was on the third day she woke up with a clear mind, and the question kind of fired off again. And at this point, she saw it. She saw that the answer was no. There's no rule in the universe that says that my mother needs to be honest, or that I need my mother to be honest for me to be at peace. And 40 pounds of rage just dissipated. So this is an example of, you could say, a truly horrible past, where someone had been objectively completely wronged, but still, we're looking at these types of distinctions can make a huge difference. Now, I also said something else to her. I used a distinction that I got from Byron Katie, which is my business, your business, and nature's business. So what I believe and think is my business. What you believe and think, your business. Whether it rains or not, nature's business. Now, this is true at the psychological level. You might make a distinction at the legal level that that it's not totally your business what you do, um, or what claims you may make. Uh, it's not legally okay to, for example, claim that someone has abused you if they haven't. It's legally the legal system's business, so to speak. For example, but at a psychological level. So a lot of our suffering comes from us being in other people's business, so to speak, and demanding that they be honest or decent, or that they see us or hear us. You might work for all those things. And some of these matters might be legal matters more than psychological matters. But I told the daughter, I said, look, the real issue here is that you're lying. Your mother's lying, you're lying, you're your mother's daughter. And once again, she got offended with me. But I said to her, look, at the psychological level, what your mother believes, how honest she is, what she's willing to acknowledge, this is her business at the psychological level. What you acknowledge, how honest you are, that's your business at the psychological level. Now, your mother is lying by denying the abuse, by not acknowledging what actually happened. That's a lie. That's a lie. Your lie is demanding that your mother be honest. And having told yourself the story that you need for her to be honest for you to have peace inside, this is a lie. You've already discovered that the idea that you need for her to be honest is a lie. Now, the reason it's a lie is because you have 25 years of experience of your mother denying this, of your mother not being honest. The evidence is overwhelming that your mother can't or won't be honest on this very topic. So, for you to mentally be in her business, demanding that a dishonest person be honest, that's a lie. That's your lie. Your business is to be honest to yourself. So when you're suffering, that's a signal for you to get back into your own business and take care of your own level of honesty. That's really the key. And once she got this, her transformation was even more profound. Now, this distinction of my business, your business, and nature's business is also very useful. Let's say, for example, in parenting. I have a lot of anger clients who lose their temper with their kids, for example. And so you might have the classic example of the parent saying, you can watch TV until 7:30, but then it's off to bed. Okay, the 5-year-old says, yes, that's a deal. And then 7:30 rolls around and the child just won't listen. Now, if you're angry in that particular situation, you have a demand that says he or she must listen. He or she must obey. Of course, this is complete bullshit. I mean, look at it. Look at the demand that says my daughter or my son must listen. Really? Is there any law in the universe that says that kids always have to listen to their parents? Is this really true? Is it really true that a 5-year-old must see the importance of sleep and realize that quality sleep is essential for a good life? Not really. So by stopping up and asking, what am I demanding? Well, I'm demanding that she must listen. Is it really true? Must she listen? Well, I'd like for her to listen. I can do what I can to persuade her. That's my job as a parent, to help her see over time the importance of sleep. But is there any law in the universe that says that you must listen? If you honestly ask that question, you will see that the answer is no. And your anger will dissipate. And your brain will see more and more that these are thoughts that we project onto other people's business. It's not objective realities. Now, you might say, well, hold on, as a father, yes, you're right. If it's a 5-year-old, your responsibility as a parent is to make sure that they get quality food and quality care and that they get enough sleep. So you might still turn the TV off and if you have to, carry them upstairs. But you can do so in a calm state of mind. You can turn the TV off. If persuasion doesn't work, you can turn the TV off. You can carry the child upstairs. You can still set boundaries and set limits. That's your job as a parent. That's part of your business as a parent. But what the child believes and is interested in and hears, that's still the child's business. Making this distinction is very, very useful. It's very useful. So, being in other people's business and demanding that they see the world a particular way is a bit like demanding that it be sunshine outside when it's raining, or demanding that someone find a joke funny when they don't. People see what they see until they don't. So here's a very practical tip from me to you, and that is, if you experience psychological suffering, one thing you can do is to stop immediately and ask yourself 2 questions. The first question is, what am I demanding right now? You're likely demanding something of yourself, someone else, or the world. So what am I demanding right now? She must listen. Okay, so that's my demand. Now, once you clarify the demand, to then ask the question, must she? Must it be that way? Or do I need it? Is it true? Is there some law in the universe that says that this has to be the case? You don't have to ask all those questions. I'm just giving you, is it true? Must it be that way? Do I need it? Is there some law in the universe? These are all different variants, really, of the same question. Now, the important part is that you ask the question with a genuine open curiosity, a open quest for truth. If you just try to change your internal dialogue, or you just try to change the thinking directly, it's often not successful. If you just do this as a distraction or as a ritual. But if you can stop, ask the question, what am I demanding? Really look at it, really see that it's a thought, and then ask, must it be that way? Is this really true? And ask it with a genuine, curious concern for what's actually true. Then your mind will be able to see that this is a thought, this is an idea. Now, we all screw up. I screw up too. I sometimes engage in this crazy thinking as well. But even if your brain was to scream back at you, yes, fuck you, it has to be that way. Even if it does that initially, just the act of making the demand visible and asking the question will have a tendency to loosen the demand. Will have a tendency to loosen the demand. So over time, you will more and more see that this is an idea. Now, finally, none of this is an argument for not having standards, or for being wishy-washy, or for being a doormat. You can still have a principled anger, for example. You might still have your standards in life, what you're willing to say yes to, what you're willing to say no to. This is your business. You still have the right to say, look, I'm not going to stay in a relationship with a person who never listens or never wants to engage with my point of view, or whatever your set of criteria might be. But it's very healthy to challenge these things and to ask yourself, well, I really like these values. This is really good, but is it true that it has to be that way? Or to notice when you're in other people's business, projecting your standards onto them and demanding, for example, that a thief or a con man be honest. You know, here also, if you're dealing with a criminal case or people who are clearly acting unethically, it might be useful to differentiate between the psychological and the legal. Or if you look at a con man or a thief, is it really true that people have to be honest? No, not on this planet. Even though the law might say that in this particular instance, this person owes you money or whatever, you might still pursue it with the full power of the legal system or with the full power of persuasion. While simultaneously at the psychological level, realizing that the fact that something's ethical, the fact that you want something, never really means that you need it. And this is, I've even done this with people who have had terminal illnesses, who have come in with a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety of, their chemotherapy has to work, or they have to know that the surgery they're going to do is going to work. And when I've sensed that they've been very neurotic about it, I've often said to them something to the effect of, no, surgery doesn't have to work. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to survive. Your kids don't even have to grow up with you as a father. And some people have flipped and cussed at me and gotten furious. Some people have cried and said, how can you say such a thing? And I've looked at them with all the compassion I've had and said, because it's true. And I've said to them, now, please understand me correctly. I'm 100% in your corner. I 100% want you to get well. I am willing to do whatever I can to help you on any level that I can. It's worth pursuing. And, not but, and there's no law in the universe that says that you must survive this or that you need a guarantee. And once people have seen that, their level of psychological suffering has dramatically dropped, irrespective of outcome, irrespective of them perhaps having a horrible disease that nothing's happened or nothing's really worked. So I'm not going to say I hope this was useful. I know this is useful to the extent that you're able to hear it, and to the extent that you're willing to play with it, willing to actually stop and ask the questions. What am I demanding? And is it really true? Quick line of credit. This whole idea of differentiating between wants and wishes or goals and musts, needs, and shoulds, the absolutistic dogmatic thinking, on the other hand, was first proposed by Greek and Roman philosophers long time ago. The Buddha kind of implied it, but didn't directly state it. In more modern times, Albert Ellis, the founder of rational emotive behavior therapy, which is a system I recommend checking out, has perhaps been the one who has made the most out of this distinction and really emphasized it. My contribution, I think, on this particular thing is, having studied Albert Ellis's work and Buddhist psychology, is to use hypnosis and NLP and artistry, change artistry, provocation artistry, humor, developing artistic ways of helping people make these distinctions, which I really think is kind of my contribution. So to the extent that this resonates, if you want to know more about how I work with clients with these distinctions, you can check out my latest book, Provocative Suggestions. All right, till next time, have a good one.